like and subscribe, and you'll have amazing luck for the rest of the week.
Hello, my friends. While air travel is considered the safest mode of transportation, the slightest error can lead to disastrous consequences. Sometimes lives are lost, and other times there are only a few injuries. But not to worry, we'll keep you safe as we take you on this ride of 10 aircraft fails and close calls. Alright, let's do this. United Airlines plane. This close call occurred when two planes clipped each other while moving at low speed on the tarmac in Boston Logan International Airport. It happened only 1 week after a plane taking off from the airport collided with another touching down. It happened that the wing of the United Airlines plane departing to New Jersey clashed with the wing of another on its way to Denver. Thankfully, it ended with only a scratch. The United staff at the terminal's gates were alert and helped tow one of the planes. They confirmed that none of the passengers were hurt. They all exited the planes after the brief accident while the management arranged to take them to safety to their destinations. Some days ago, a Learjet pilot took off from Logan without clearance from an air traffic control and landed almost simultaneously with a JetBlue flight. The situation forced the JetBlue pilot to pull up in the climb-out to avoid collision. One theory explaining these close calls says that air travel may have returned to the pre-pandemic era, and many pilots are new to the industry. Therefore, these near accidents are inevitable. Mesa Airlines CRJ-900. The National Transportation Safety Board confirmed that a landing Mesa Airlines CRJ-900 crew was forced to execute a pilot-initiated go-around. This decision was inevitable because a SkyWest Embraer E175 was taking off from the same runway. A go-around is an emergency routine called for by an air traffic controller or a pilot to avoid a landing on the approach. The authority confirmed that the airplane wasn't damaged, nor was anyone hurt. However, recordings from the time of the event showed the confusion over whether the SkyWest flight had left the runway or not. It was unclear how close both planes were to have resulted in a collision. The Mesa pilot was unsure whether to make the emergency move or go ahead. He opted for the safer option because he didn't want to leave anything to chance. He quickly discontinued landing and initiated a climb-out. Meanwhile, the SkyWest aircraft continued as usual, prompting an alert on the deck of the Mesa aircraft. Honolulu. On January 23, 2023, there was an incident at Daniel K. Inouye International Airport involving a United Airlines 777 jet and a single-engine cargo plane at the Hawaii airport. The bigger jet crossed a runway abruptly while the cargo aircraft was landing. Both vessels were separated by only 1,170 feet, which was disastrous. The smaller aircraft is a Cessna 206 turboprop operated by Kamaka Air and used to ferry goods between the Hawaiian Islands. It's unclear why both pilots ignored tower instructions and crossed a runway they were advised not to. Unlike in other incidents where one plane needed to abort, Cessna stopped before reaching the spot United 77 had to cross. The airline management testified before the Senate committee about the incident. They admitted that it was not something they expected to happen. They revealed that tower visibility was low, and in fact, zero. However, the pilots did all they could to avert what would have been a horrific outcome. There were 291 passengers and 10 crew members on board the United Airlines plane, while 2 crew members were on the Cessna. New York JFK. This close call involved American Airlines and Delta Airlines flights. The incident began when a Delta Boeing 737 crew aborted its takeoff and stopped within 1,000 feet of the taxiing AA's Boeing 777. The Delta flight bound for Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, had 145 customers and 6 crew members on board. Audio recordings detail how the swift action by an air traffic controller averted a crash. He had streamed from the tower and advised Delta 943 to cancel takeoff clearance. Thankfully, the pilot heeded the advice. The flight eventually returned to the gate and couldn't depart due to staffing issues. It left the following day while passengers lodged in a hotel. The airline management said it would cooperate with the National Transportation Safety Board to investigate the flight. American Airlines didn't comment on the issue, but referred all questions to the FAA. Data from FlightAware shows that American Airlines Flight 106 was a London Heathrow-bound flight. U.S. Airways Flight 1549. Miraculous was the adjective used to describe this close call. Before that, there's been no safe landing this shocking. On January 15, 2009, a plane plunged into the Hudson River. No one was hurt. How was this even possible? That fateful day, Captain Chelsea Sullenberger II and his crew had a good day and didn't prepare for any uncertainty. However, nature had its way of cutting expectations short. Their good fortunes quickly switched to bad after a bird strike by a flock of Canadian geese shut down the Airbus A320 engines shortly after takeoff. The captain thought of the best way to remedy the situation, and only one thing came to mind: the river. He calculated that landing in water was safer than crashing on land, obviously. His decision later became one of the most heroic accomplishments of an aviator. It was also nicknamed the Miracle of the Hudson. His top-notch piloting skills saved the passengers and crew on board. No one was hurt, except for minor bruises, but it was better than losing lives from a poor decision. LOT Polish Airlines Flight 16. After concluding a trip from New Jersey to Poland on November 1, 2011, this LOT Polish Airlines Boeing 767 was about to land. But there was a problem. There was no landing gear. The primary gear couldn't be deployed due to a hydraulic leak. Although the crew had received warnings 30 minutes into the trip, it continued burning through the large fuel load. Only when the landing gear failed to deploy did it become clear that everyone was in trouble. How on earth would it land without wheels? Alternative methods of lowering the gears failed, and the plane circled aimlessly for an hour to burn off the remaining fuel. The crew was forced to execute a successful wheels-up landing. Experts hailed their style as heroic, as all 231 passengers and crew members made it out alive and unhurt. Qantas Flight 464. Sometimes, pilots face tough decisions that could make or mar their careers. Captain Jeremy Zwart and his first officer, Lachlan Smalley, made the toughest decision of their lives on October 15, 2014. They had to negotiate an extremely perilous landing after a violent thunderstorm hit Sydney Airport with 70-mile-per-hour winds. Despite his experience with maneuvering terrible conditions, he'd never seen a thing like that. It was like the most incredible storm ever. Those of Greenland, Alaska, and New Zealand were only a piece of cake. It was so severe that the Airbus A330-300 went up, down, and sideways. Passengers were already panicking. He needed to make a decision, and he needed to make it fast. The safest would be to land the plane. Despite the roaring lightning, thunder, and wind, he successfully landed the jet after circling the airport for over an hour. Despite the difficult circumstances, the plane landed in near-perfect condition. Qantas is the only airline that Dustin Hoffman's character in Rain Man flew.
Gonna have to get on a plane.
Yeah, get on a plane.
Yeah.
Qantas.
Qantas?
Qantas never crashed.
Because it had no fatalities since its 70 years of operation. Therefore, it ranks as the safest in the world. Air Canada Flight 759. Air Canada Flight 759 was a regular traveler between Toronto Pearson International Airport and San Francisco International Airport. On July 7, 2017, it took off from the Canadian city before 10 p.m. local time. This was even 30 minutes later than the scheduled time. Midway into the flight, the plane experienced a series of thunderstorms. It was so severe that the crew reported signs of fatigue. They were exhausted from the maneuvering and intense concentration. Meanwhile, at SFO, where they were scheduled to land, runway 28L was closed for repairs. The light was turned off, and only a 20.5-foot wide light flashed through the runway. The air traffic control issued a clearance notice to Air Canada Flight 759 to land at runway 28R. Due to fatigue, they didn't notice the difference. They were also unaware of 28L's closure. They confused both runways and were heading to the wrong one. The aircraft was ready to land on Taxi C and was only 14 feet separated from Air Canada, Airbus A320, and Air Philippines Airbus A340's tail. Air Canada's pilots immediately sighted the impending disaster, conducted a turnaround, and landed at SFO normally. None of the passengers from the three planes were injured. Japan Airlines Boeing 747 and DC-10 near collision mid-air. NTSB chairman had called Air Canada's near miss in San Francisco the most significant in that decade. However, the incident involving these two Japanese airplanes in 2001 would have become the deadliest accident in aviation history. The Japan Airlines Boeing 747-400 took off from Tokyo Haneda International Airport en route to Naha Airport with its 411 passengers and 16 crew members. Meanwhile, a Japan Airlines McDonnell Douglas DC-10 flew from South Korea's Gimhae International Airport to Tokyo Narita International Airport. The pilots from both aircraft received a warning from the traffic collision avoidance systems of a looming mid-air collision. The initial plan was that both planes should separate by 20,000 feet of altitude. A trainee air traffic controller overlooked the details and told 747 to descend while asking DC-10 to turn towards the southeast. DC-10 pilots didn't get the instruction to turn southeast, so they headed on the same course as the 747. The supervisor realized this mistake early and took over the control to avert the disaster. She further worsened the situation by asking Flight 958 to descend immediately. Sadly, that was not DC-10's code, so the pilots assumed she was talking to a different aircraft. But for Captain Makoto Watanabe's sharp maneuver downwards, both planes would have collided and made history. They missed each other by only 35 feet. Ural Airlines Flight 178. On August 15, 2019, Ural Airlines Airbus A321, with 233 people on board, departed Zhukovsky International Airport in Moscow. It was headed to Simferopol International Airport in Ukraine. Shortly after takeoffs, its two engines were consumed by a flock of birds. These animals ingested themselves in both engines and were stuck there. This caused the plane to lose power on both engines, forcing it to fly at a low altitude. The flight crew had no option but to schedule an emergency landing because it was the only way to keep most, if not all, the passengers safe. Fortunately, there was a cornfield ahead. It was flat enough for the crew to land safely. Captain Damir Yusupov brought down the Ural Airlines flight to the field with no engine power, and the landing gear retracted. 29 passengers were taken to the hospital after the crash, while 50 others received immediate help at the site. The aircraft was broken up on site because it was damaged beyond repair. Until next time, adios.